Okay, and now we're recording. We're going to start this meeting by having introductions, and then we'll go over why we're going through this project, what's needed, and then review our previous discussions, introduce to you our preferred alternative, receive feedback from you, and then ultimately, hopefully, we can get a recommendation coming from this group. And then we'll finalize by telling you the next steps for this plan to become reality. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and we'll go through introductions real quick. So for those that don't know me, I think you all know me. My name is Matt Herman. I'm a transportation planner for Clark County. Been with the county about 7 years. I've been involved with 179th Street for quite some time, from the urban holding days to now, and the implementation of our investments along the corridor. We'll start off by doing external agencies and then move on to the Clark County folks. So with that said, joining me are my consultants from DKS as well as OTAC. So we'll begin with Chuck.
Thank you. I'm Chuck Green with OTAC, and I've been leading the kind of the engineering overview of the work we've been doing, as well as the GIS story mapping that you've been using as the interactive map.
Thank you, Chuck. Amanda.
Hi, Amanda Deering with DKS. Along with Ria, we have been helping lead the planning process for this circulation and access management study.
Thank you. Carolyn Bichelle, WashDOT.
Hi everyone, I'm Caroline Boucher and I work for WashDOT. I work with Chad in project development and review and for WashDOT. And I've been part of that discussion since the beginning.
Thank you. Chad Hancock.
Yeah, thanks. Chad Hancock, DOT. I'm the project development engineer, so oversee all the design for the region.
Thank you. Laura Peterson.
Hi, Laura Peterson, WashDOT Southwest Region and part of the Clark County Engineering Office of WashDOT, and we're working on the 179th Street interchange with the counties, so I'm just sitting in today.
Thank you, Laura. See next, Courtney Sell.
Hi, Courtney Sell. I'm representing Southwest Region Traffic.
Thank you, Courtney. Kelly Smith.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelly Smith. I'm representing WashDOT Southwest Region Planning today.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's move on to Eric Hahn with the City of Vancouver.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Hahn. I'm with the City of Vancouver Streets and Transportation Division.
Excellent. And then we'll move on to our Clark County folks, starting with David Jardine.
Good afternoon, David Jardine, Transportation Concurrency. I look at current development for impacts on the roadways.
Thank you, David. Jackie Camp.
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Camp. I'm representing Clark County Community Planning.
Thank you, Jackie. Pam Shensi.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Pam Shensi with Clark County, and I work in environmental services, reviewing projects for environmental permitting and making sure we acquire all the permits necessary.
Great, thank you, Pam. Rob Klug.
Good afternoon, Rob Klug with Clark County. I'm the acting county engineer.
Thank you, Rob. Scott Sawyer.
Good afternoon, Scott Sawyer with Clark County Capital Project Management Section, and I'm managing a couple of the projects currently in the corridor.
Great, thank you, Scott. So that concludes our introduction. I'll flip back to my presentation here. So we started out with this project back in August, but September We reviewed with this group our introduction of why we're doing this project and reviewed some of the existing conditions that we see on the corridor. It's largely a rural road right now, and urban development is allowed to proceed. So there's a significant amount of improvements that need to occur within the corridor in order to bring it up to urban standards. There's several planned improvements that the county as well as WSDOT has planned from the interchange to the urban growth boundary. And that's largely based on the classifications that are detailed in the arterial atlas. In October, we presented several different alternatives as far as circulation routes and intersection improvements along the corridor. We had a discussion with that. November, which I guess now is December due to the holidays, we're concluding our meetings with the TAC by presenting to you our recommendation, and hopefully we can get a recommendation in return. So the need for this project was really to preserve our investment first and foremost, along with the interchange reconstruction, which I believe is tabbed at about 50 million. There's 66.5 million at least going into the corridor on the county system. So we want to make sure that that investment is preserved and that safety and mobility is paramount in this corridor in the long run. In order to do that, we have some significant concerns, and those are the hills and valleys that are along that corridor. Those hills and valleys either need to be cut or filled in order to bring it up to the design speed, as well as have a real hard look at our access management so that the traffic isn't delayed in turning movements through most of the time. So we want to take a look at the future access locations for collectors and arterials to connect to 179th Street, as well as what those intersection improvements should be. So the intention of having this committee formed is really to provide us with your guidance, insight, and consideration for preserving that investment in safety and mobility. We all have our own technical perspectives, and coming together as a group, we can really make sure that this corridor functions for all of our technicalities and make sure everything is considered so that we have a steady plan moving forward. So we are guided by several different goals and policies within the comprehensive plan, and this is also underlined in the state's Growth Management Act. State's Growth Management Act calls for efficient multimodal transportation as a background for developing our system locally. So that's something that we try to stay in our minds and make sure that it's a tenet of this plan moving forward. The local goals are to optimize and preserve the investment in that transportation system, which I've mentioned previously, as well as the different policies shown here that ultimately support that goal. We also want to ensure mobility through that transportation system, and that mobility is not just vehicles, but that is a multimodal mobility. So making sure not only vehicles can be as efficient as possible, but as well as trucks, bikes, pedestrians, as well as a transit system. With transit noted, it should be noted that transit comes in when there's a population. So currently, obviously, there's not a population in this developing neighborhood, but we want to make sure that transit can be accommodated when it is served and it is an urban area in the future. So our planning study is right in the northern end of the Vancouver urban growth area. It's northwest 179th Street and northeast 179th Street, both on the east and west side of the interchange, I-5 interchange. From northwest 11th Avenue at the western bookend to northeast 50th Avenue at the eastern bookend. This is classified as a principal arterial, 4 lanes with center turn lane and bike lanes. We have received a design deviation for Northeast 179th Street that considers a smaller cross section, same right-of-way width, but smaller cross section for moving traffic and pedestrians and bikes from Northeast 50th Avenue to Northeast 29th Avenue. In our study area, we have several different land use types. From the west, we have the fairgrounds, obviously. The fairgrounds is right now the prominent land use in the area. That's why the neighborhood is called the Fairgrounds neighborhood. But we also have several commercial and light industrial developments near the fairgrounds. On the west side, or I'm sorry, east side of the interchange is flanked by commercial land and business park / light industrial to the north along 10th Avenue. We have received several applications for apartments in the area, as well as a large scale development that includes an elementary school as well. So that's necessary, obviously, from the safety perspective along this corridor, and to make sure that our students and our future is represented in this plan. Moving out to the east, we have several different land uses, including mixed-use developments and residential zoning districts. Everything from low-density residential to high-density apartments. So this is really a corridor that's going to have a lot of different uses coming to and from, both from the perspective of being a traffic generator as well as a recipient of traffic. So that's was noted during our consideration for our plan. Any questions? And by the way, I am looking at my screen, so just feel free to interrupt me and speak up if you have any questions. Okay. So we had several different web links that we used for the development of our plan. The number one that you've seen several times is our interactive project web page that OTAC put together, and I'll share that real soon. This interactive website had many different considerations and many different interactive tabs that allowed us to zoom in and zoom out of the specifics. We were able to see the environmental constraints that are currently mapped, as well as proposed development, either if it's been approved or proposed development that's pending. We also, with this interactive map, we're able to look at parcel level data to find out what the existing use is on the properties, as well as look at the topography, meaning the slopes of the land. There were several different items that precipitated this this plan, and number one was the design of those cuts and fills. Within this interactive map, we do show where those driveway elevation changes from the, excuse me. So we were able to see if a driveway was going to be significantly lower or greater than the final grade of the road, and put that into our final work product as where the local roads and collectors and arterials would connect to 179th Street. So here we showed where the driveway would be greater than, shown by the triangles pointed to the north, and then the triangles pointed to the south showed where they would be less than. So that was helpful to develop our plan and move forward. Put my information back on here. So this web map was definitely important for us to develop our plan and move forward. Let's see. We also reviewed the street classification layer to see how those would interact with one another. We reviewed both collectors and arterials, their right-of-way width, as well as the dimensions for the pavement width and the design speed. Within our classification, collectors and arterials don't have direct access, and direct access is not allowed. And the spacing that is shown on this is how we plan our grid system from unincorporated Clark County. So our principal arterials occur every 2 to 5 miles, and minor arterials are in between. And collectors, whether they have center turn lanes, bike lanes, or parking, are drive traffic from local streets to the arterials. Conversely, we have local road classifications as well. And not only are these residential roads, but we also have commercial industrial roads that factor into our future plans. And these commercial and industrial roads drive traffic from either commercial or industrial districts to the larger road network. A lot of the big difference between commercial industrial roads and your local neighborhood circulators occur in the subbase. Those commercial and industrial roads have much deeper subbase that can take on that truck traffic. So the next slides here are very important for determining where those future streets are located. It's very complicated to explain, so I'll do my best, and please interrupt me if you have any questions. But with 179th Street, it is principal arterial, has a design speed in our code as a 50 mile per hour profile. So in order to achieve that, as I mentioned, there are several cuts and fills. The existing profile is shown as the green dashed line, with the red line shown as what's necessary to achieve that 50 mile per hour grade. The section of road from Northwest 11th Avenue to Del Fell is pretty much on grade now. The current grade can be accommodated based on the current topography, so there's not a huge elevation concern on the west side of the freeway. However, that's not the case on the east side of the freeway. From 15th Avenue to 22nd Avenue, you can see the existing profile in green here, the green dashed line, and what's needed to either cut or fill that. Each horizontal line is approximately 5 feet. So in a profile here, you can see that a cut is necessary at approximately 5 feet to bring it to the existing grade. So this is important, especially when we had a conversation with our stakeholders. We have a proposed road that's currently in the arterial atlas as 22nd Avenue, and that connects Northeast 179th Street to a future collector. That future collector is aligned with a condo driveway that's right at this high point. And the reason why that collector is in the location that it's at is because it has the best sight distance. There has been interest from private development of moving that future collector further to the west. However, putting it further to the west would have some sight distance issues, and again, not be the optimal location for safety of that corridor and of 179th Street. It's also important to know that with our roundabouts have to be designed so that they're ADA compliant for pedestrians to travel across the road. So it's not just the road that needs to be leveled, it's the apron and the entire future roundabout or future intersection in order to provide for safe traffic for pedestrians and meet those ADA standards. Moving further from 15th Avenue to 22nd Avenue to the east, we can see that topography from 25th Avenue to 37th Avenue. This section of road includes the existing intersection at Northeast 29th Avenue. And you all know this road if you've driven it, how you get to 29th Avenue and there's a significant hill that you have to climb in order to get to the intersection. This is where most of our cuts and our fills are going to be occurring, with the most significant sag occurring east of 29th Avenue between 34th and 37th Avenue. Moving further to the east from the BPA right-of-way to 50th Avenue, again, you can see the existing topography and the slope that's needed to bring that roadway up to its design speed. So again, you can see that this is a profile of 179th Street, but this also significantly affects those future collectors or future driveways that would connect to this principal arterial. Sometimes it's just not feasible because either the access location is significantly above or significantly below what the future grade of 179th Street will be. So with that said, we have our proposed access management and circulation plan in front of you. This is also duplicated in that interactive map that OTAC has, but translated into Clark County maps for formal adoption if you do so recommend. But moving from the west to the east, what we are proposing is several different roundabouts and right in, right out treatments at those intersections. So first off, the legend, if you see a red dot that looks like with a black eyeball, that's designated as a future roundabout. So we're showing future roundabouts at the intersection of Northwest 179th Street and Northwest 11th Avenue. Obviously, to the south east quadrant of this, we have the approved North Haven subdivision. So this roundabout would have to skew further to the north where we have underdeveloped properties in those locations. In between the roundabouts that are proposed, we have right in, right out shared access that connect 179th Street to future neighborhood circulators. And those are shown as, you can see they're highlighted in yellow. They are brown lines with a red hashed mark. So what's shown, and I'll try to explain this, but there's a lot going on. So a change, an addition change is shown as a yellow highlight. A realignment is shown as a blue highlight. A removal is shown as a orangish reddish highlight. And then within each of those highlights, there's the road classification. So olive color is our neighborhood circulator. And showing that that road does not exist today, we have that red hash line that shows that it's proposed and not existing. So those right in, right out would access 179th Street and connect this residential district to 179th Street. So if folks wanted to take a left out of the property or go left into the property, they would utilize the roundabout to go around and then back toward the interchange. Or if they're coming from the west and want to go north, they would use the roundabout at the fairgrounds access, do a U-turn and then access the property that way. We had a lot of thought about a future neighborhood circulator connecting this location to the future collector, but due to the environmental constraints that are in this area, we thought local roads would probably be the best served for this use, rather than relying on the neighborhood circulators. And then moving from, again, further to the east, we have a future collector that's currently in our arterial atlas because it's not highlighted as yellow. That would connect the midpoint between Northwest 11th and Delfell Road and serve to distribute that traffic. And then coming off of the neighborhood coming off of the collector, we have an additional neighborhood circulator that would go from the east all the way at, I believe it's Northwest 4th Avenue to Northeast Delfell Road. In between, and two roundabouts would be another right in, right out access with a north-south neighborhood circulator. And then this northeast 2nd Avenue, the reason why we chose a roundabout at this location rather than a right in, right out is because the separation between residential traffic in this area and commercial traffic in this area would help facilitate the two competing, not modes, but competing destinations. It is designated as commercial land to the east of Northeast 2nd Avenue and residential land to the west of Northeast 2nd Avenue. So that would help kind of distribute that traffic more evenly. Any questions on this section of Northeast or Northwest 179th Street? Okay. Moving further to the east, we have several different roads that will be removed and disconnected as part of the interchange reconstruction project. Most notably, that includes Union Road, where it currently exists, and Northeast 10th Avenue. We will be removing these roads not only in reality, but also from the arterial atlas. So those are noted. Northeast 12th Avenue will be a three-legged roundabout with through traffic and then access to the south property and what is currently being planned as the Three Creeks development. This is commercial land to the south, and they're conceptually, and it's not approved, is a large retail development with offices in this location. To the north, there's significant terrain issues, which is why the roundabout is only three-legged and doesn't go to the north. But this is currently commercial land, once again, and would be accessed by the future extension of 15th Avenue from 179th Street to Northeast 10th Avenue. The alignment that has been designed and is in consideration right now with our engineering and our project management considers a different alignment than what's currently shown on the arterial atlas. So we'd like to remove what is currently shown in the arterial atlas and bring it to its alignment that's being planned for, with a future roundabout that's would both access the future development for this large property, as well as school and residential to the north. Moving east at 15th Avenue, we again, the blue square is showing right in, right out. So with 179th Street being fully developed, Northeast 17th Avenue would be a right in, right out access. And then moving further to the east as we get closer to the Whipple Creek crossing, we have another legend item. And this is an interim access emergency use only in the future. So interim access means it occurs today, but it may not in the future. And if it does occur in the future, it will only be allowed for emergency access. So the property that's vacant at this triangle here is Clark County owned property. It's I believe, I don't think it's owned by Clark County Parks. I think it's a clean water site. And then we would have shared access right in, right out for these properties. Emergency access only for the 179th Street West apartment development. So there's two developments that are currently proposed, 179th Street West and 179th Street East. Those developments will be served eventually by roads off of 179th Street. But in the interim, when those roads aren't constructed and aren't built, they will have direct access on 179th Street, but will be changed to emergency access once the collector and neighborhood circulator are built to access those properties.
Hey,
So
Matt, this is Scott Sawyer.
Sure.
Quick question, if we could step back to Northeast 17th Avenue.
Yes.
That's a scale issue with that interim and emergency use only triangle, correct? Because the property to the south of that triangle is where we're proposing to do our stormwater facility for 179th. It's just, that's a scale issue, right? You don't plan to put a road there.
No, we don't. No, this would be only access for the facility itself. It would not be a future road. It's only to be, this property here has no other access besides 179th Street. So it's not a future road. It's only access for, I want to say Clark County, just to access that property. So yeah, you are correct. The scale is not the scale of those. The scale of the shapes is not the scale of what the roundabouts or right in, right out will be. So it's not a future road, it's just access. Okay. 22nd Avenue, we're planning that as a roundabout. To the south of 179th Street and the 22nd intersection, there is an existing development there. So developing the roundabout would skew the road a bit to the north in order to facilitate the development of that roundabout. There has been consideration from the private to change this future collector from its existing location to a location right here where that blue square is shown. We evaluated this, and I will move back to my slides. Unfortunately, when we looked at that location, we noted that the intersection would be approximately in this location here. If you can see where my hand is showing. And that location has a severe sight distance issue. So we thought in the light of safety, the existing location where we're showing the future collector is the safest location. Additionally, there are several wetlands that run through that area, and connecting the road through the neighborhood circulator, we would have issues taking the road from its lateral movement to a diagonal movement, and we would deal with proportionality issues with that. We did want to take a look at this neighborhood circulator. We thought it might be the best location maybe to be along the north property lines than splitting the properties and crossing the wetlands. Currently, we're proposing crossing the wetlands not only at this location, but at this location as well. So in order to really keep those wetlands intact and not disturb our environmental areas, just crossing once would be the best situation, and then going from the property line from east to west. So we would remove this section of neighborhood circulator from the arterial atlas, move it to the north, and then have the alignment of the future neighborhood circulator connect to approximately northeast 26th Avenue. And that again would be a right in, right out. Northeast 29th Avenue is planned as a future roundabout. Again, this is a major intersection for us, connecting the principal arterial to the minor arterial, and that's currently being planned and is in not only the capital facilities plan, but also in the transportation improvement program. From 29th Avenue to 50th Avenue, we are planning on a shared access right in, right out, just to the east of 29th Avenue. Emergency access for these small properties here that's shared, and then future right in, right out shared access that connects the neighborhood to 179th Street through a neighborhood circulator. We are also proposing a future roundabout at the midpoint between 29th Avenue and 50th Avenue, approximately 37th Avenue. This would connect 179th Street to a collector, a larger street, larger than a neighborhood circulator, smaller than an arterial, and go through the BPA right away and connect ultimately to 174th Street. This would form our grid pattern and have folks not only rely on 50th Avenue to for access, ingress, egress out of the neighborhood, but also provide them a secondary access on 37th Avenue. That would transition from to the north, and that is planned as a neighborhood circulator. You can see on this map that we are not planning on crossing the wetlands, so that neighborhood circulator would serve approximately the area that's bounded by the wetlands and streams. We want to clean up the arterial atlas for the future neighborhood circulator. Further, I believe this is like 39th Avenue. Instead of having this sweeping curve that's currently shown as the orangish reddish mark, we want to align it with the approved development property that goes directly north-south, and then add a future neighborhood circulator that connects the properties between 179th Street and 174th Street, the collector. So this would be an addition to our arterial atlas. Next intersection is access is a emergency access only. Interim when the local road network is not built. And then a future roundabout at a collector that's currently in our arterial atlas that connects 179th Street to 174th Street. We would also like to plan on a future neighborhood circulator that connects through this L-shaped or dogleg 178th Street to 47th Avenue, and terminate that in a right in, right out access. And then the Woodbrook planned unit development, which is currently approved, is proposing or is building this future collector So the arterial atlas, we want to change that so it aligns with the approved plans. This hexagon shaped is interim full access with future right in, right out. So as you can see, this future collector has roundabouts on both sides of it, pretty much equidistant between the two. So it would rely on those roundabouts for full movement. The intersection at 50th Avenue, we are studying as what's needed in the interim and what's needed in the long term. Because the arterial atlas is a long-term planning, we want to plan on that as a future roundabout, but it may be built in the interim as a signalized intersection to serve the future development just in the immediate term.
So Matt?
Yes.
Not signalized, always stop.
Always stop, thank you. Always stop. So with that said, that concludes my review of our plan. Interested to hear if you have any questions. Chuck or Amanda, did I miss anything? Do you want
to? Yeah, I know we had a discussion about a commercial industrial collector or circulator just west of 50th, because it's not quite clear from the map, but if you went down 50th south of 179th, it's going to be very difficult to get any direct access onto 50th because of some severe drainages or gullies in there. And so we're expecting the access to that, and I believe that's mixed use.
Yes.
Will have to come from something other than 50th. And just because of how those wetlands and the gullies are formed, it's probably going to need to go directing traffic to the west. Unfortunately, it puts that type of mixed use traffic onto what are essentially residential circulators or local access streets. So we were trying to get traffic as quickly as possible up to 179th or down to 174th to find their way east and west.
It's also likely that this mixed-use development will have access on 174th Street and be able to access 50th Avenue via 174th Street. But yeah, thank you for that. That's important to note.
And I also want to note that what you might have seen before and what you're seeing now looks a little different because of some input from our community stakeholders from that last meeting and some of their suggestions. So it does show the importance of community and stakeholder involvement because some of their ideas are now being reflected after we've had a chance to analyze them.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've been an important part. And we are, not only have we had this technical advisory committee, but as Chuck mentioned, we've also been meeting with the community or stakeholder committee. We'll conclude our meetings with them on Wednesday at 10 and ask for their recommendation as well. Any other questions? Okay. So I guess I'll just ask for this formally then. We are seeking your recommendation on this alternative to move forward. If you do recommend this to move forward, we will bring this in front of the Development and Engineering Advisory Board as well as the Planning Commission, scheduled for February hearing. And then moving forward, the County Council will consider all the recommendations, not only this TAC committee, stakeholders, the DEEB recommendation, and the Planning Commission recommendation. So it's well documented and noted.
This is David Jardine, and I recommend that this move forward. It would be nice to be in front of the developments for once.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, David.
So this is Rob.
Sure.
The one thing I would ask that is included in this is that in the process of looking at the intersection improvements at 50th and 119th Street, we are not going forward with the complete roundabout design at this point because we can allow the level of service to work for a period of time and use the money somewhere else. So one thing I would recommend that we find a way to memorialize is that when development occurs around the intersection of 50th and 119th Street, we should have a really good idea before we put the design for 50th and 179th on the shelf. We should have a really good idea of what the intersection treatment is going to be, what the catch lines are, the for the cuts and fills, etc. And we need to memorialize that in some way so that as developers come in, they're given TIF credits for the right-of-way associated with the future roundabout that will be put in there. So we're making sure that as development occurs in that particular area, that we're not going to pinch ourselves because we missed that mark. So part of this right now needs to be an analysis that includes how we're going to put aside the future right-of-way needs for 50th and 119th or 179th, because we know that. And then we need to have another discussion as to how we're going to set aside the right-of-way for the other interspersed future roundabouts.
Yes.
That way the land is already ready for us to go. And my first blush view on it is that the best way to do that is just to allow it to be memorialized in some way and then have TIF credits for the extra right-of-way needed, which it should be TIF eligible because we're building the corridor.
Yeah, the whole corridor is in our capital facilities plan. Therefore, right-of-way dedication is a TIF credit eligible application.
Right. I just want to make sure we don't potentially lose that detail.
Okay, good to know.
And I'm kind of looking at this whole process we're going through here on this particular project as being something that will kick off on every other project like 72nd Avenue as we take on that project. And so we'll want to have this as a blueprint as to how to move forward on the next group of projects that we do.
So I know Clark County employees know this, but for both Eric and the WSDOT folks, Clark County currently does not have its own roundabout design standards. We defer to WSDOT manual for roundabouts. We are going through an effort working with a consultant to develop those roundabout standards and make sure that they're applicable for our local roads. So that will be necessary as we move forward with future corridors. But for now, we're deferring on the WSDOT design for our roundabouts along this corridor. Okay, so obviously this is a group that is not a formal group. We don't make recommendations on a regular basis, but I am hearing that we'd like to move forward with this preferred alternative to our next step, our adoption step. And we will do so. I take your silence as a recommendation. So unless I hear anything different, we'll move this forward. Are there any objections to that? Okay. So with that said, the next step. Go ahead, Rob.
Let me just throw this out here because I'd like us to start thinking about this. How have we addressed the pedestrian access across the principal arterial needs pedestrian and bicycle access to cross? Is the spacing of the roundabouts sufficient for that or not?
Yeah, we analyzed that. We also analyzed the access way requirements that developments have when they abut or are near this principal arterial. We thought about mapping those pedestrian access locations. The issue that we had with that is we all are showing precise locations for both the neighborhood circulators and the collectors and arterials. So if we show where those pedestrian easements will be, we don't want those to be interpreted as precise. We want those to be development driven based on the requirements that are in the code today. So we will be noting the pedestrian access ways in our final report, make sure that those move forward in the implementation of this plan. But we did plan on those roundabouts to serve adequate crossings for folks going across 179th Street at safe locations in a multimodal way, not only pedestrians, but also bikes as well.
Okay, thank you.
And we also looked at the spacing so that pedestrians, as they try to cross 179th, aren't going a mile out of the way to do so. And so we are looking right now, I think our spacing is averaging maybe a third of a mile. If you take the number of roundabouts and divide by the distance of the whole corridor. So we felt that that was reasonably adequate so that we're kind of balancing the modes as we travel along the corridor.
So when you look at the attractions and destinations on either side, is the commercial at a point where it's closer to the roundabout? I'm just thinking about what reason would there be for somebody to go circuitously through the long way as opposed to trying to run across a 4-lane road. You're always going to have my friend lives on the other side of the road, and I don't want to walk a third of a mile, cross third of a mile back,
right?
Whatever. But is it kind of for the flow concept of how people are moving through the area for goods and services and transit, et cetera? Does it kind of make sense?
Yeah, we tried to get it so that it's not a railroad tracks where one person lives on one side of 179th, the other lives on both, but it is well connected. That's when we envision where these roundabouts are located. A lot's going to depend on the design, but they are located in areas where folks can safely cross the street at locations where the vehicles are slower. That is definitely one of the things about roundabouts that we want to promote with pedestrian travel is it's locations that are where traffic is slower and safer to cross.
So do we want to add another layer or concept to this, or start thinking about what our pedestrian access routes should be that are not along the arterial? bike routes, not bike routes, but bike boulevards, etc., to provide slower speed locations that would take you to a location that would have an easier crossing of the arterial if you're trying to move from point A to point B. Because I think we're thinking about cars here, but we're not kind of delving into the act of transportation as much as maybe we could.
Okay.
Well,
I like what I'm seeing here. I'm just trying to add some layers and thought, thinking about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can definitely take a deeper dive on the pedestrian and bicycle.
So the other thing, if you get into the interactive map, these are kind of local access points onto the system, which we just put. They're not collectors or arterials, so they don't really belong on this plan. But what we did do is identify where those points might be so that when people circulate out of a neighborhood, and this is for all modes, that they circulate to a place where they can find their way to 179th, and in many cases to where there's roundabouts so they can cross 179th. So where we did look a little bit at that cross circulation aspect, and trying to think of a good, a pretty good example, actually, Matt, would be west of I-5, where we got a lot of those kind of blue dashes on that map. Yeah, there you go, right in there. If you look at where those blue dashes are, that's what we were trying to do to get more than just vehicle circulation, but pedestrian circulation out to those circulators, and then down to 179th with those crossings at what we consider to be pretty manageable locations. So you aren't going too far out of your way, but you are finding a, assuming that eventually you'll have sidewalks along those neighborhood circulators, you'll have a separated pedestrian route to get to and from 179.
So Matt, when you're working through this and kind of finalizing this, can you just start kind of noodling over how can we cement in the pedestrian connectivity here in this area that hasn't been developed? Do we need a code change? What do we need to do to make this? I mean, we have the ability to make this a really premier community from a lot of different aspects.
Yeah.
And I think bringing in the ped and bike as a more direct safety and mobility aspect of it is really going to help this area be a place where people really want to live.
Yeah, we can definitely expand on our bicycle and pedestrian lens for this and move forward to make sure that pedestrians and bikes aren't just a part of 179th, but they are integral to the future planning of it.
So the roundabout corridor that goes from I-5 to the fairgrounds entrance, we already have 4 lanes and a bike lane on that section of road. Does that roundabout corridor actually allow us to have less than a 5-lane section with bike lanes on both sides? Is this part of the selling point of this corridor? Is it's going to be less cost, less impact in the future?
Yeah, one of the things that was difficult with this plan was factoring in event traffic. As you know, with the fairgrounds event traffic, what happens is they shift it to when before an event starts, it's 3 lanes in, 1 lane out, and then when the event is done, it's 3 lanes out, 1 lane in. So those roundabouts are definitely able to facilitate that change in traffic and that event traffic. However, it does play a huge role as far as what's necessary from just a general perspective for this principal arterial and what's necessary for the event traffic at the fairgrounds. Kind of 2 different things there.
Mhm. Well, I think the other thing we need to look at is what is the true capacity needs of the fairgrounds? Because in the past, it's been their ability to take the traffic in and park it, and that creates a queue that you just need stacking space in between the intersections. But if it's going to flood back to the freeway, it's going to flood back to the freeway.
Yeah. Hate to interrupt you, Eric Hahn, you had your hand raised for some time. I don't know if you still have a question or not.
Yeah, I was actually just writing a message. I need to bail out of here in a second, but I was just going to say I think the plan looks good. I don't have any objections or concerns about it. One question as far as what is being taken forward, is it just the horizontal information being taken forward, or are you also going to be including the profile data that we saw?
No, we're just taking the horizontal plan information.
Okay.
The vertical slope stuff is an engineering call.
Yep.
It's not
Perfect.
a political call.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. I just want to make sure of that. I'll probably give you some written comments just for the record, or for you to chew on for the next steps. But yeah, I think this plan looks good.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks for your participation.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Okay. Rob, we'll definitely address some of the more of a multimodal lens toward this, so that it can accompany this plan in the adoption and implementation. I think some of the thoughts that you gave are important, and give us some guidance to take a deeper look. So I appreciate that.
Sure, I'm just speaking for Gary today.
Yeah. All right, so one last slide. So with that, our next steps are at the end of this month, we'll have a final report drafted. In January, we'll take the plan and implementation plan and guidance through the SEPA process. That will also be our month for public outreach, where we'll have virtual open houses and allow the residents that may be affected by future lines on the arterial map know that change is being considered. In February, we'll have the Development Engineering Advisory Board at the beginning of the month. Planning Commission again in February, and then on to County Council in March. This process is part of our comprehensive plan amendment, as it includes amendments to the Arterial Atlas. Those comprehensive plan amendments are only considered once a year, so we are trying our hardest to get this process within the 2021 docket cycle, rather than having to wait a whole nother year. So with the help of community planning and Jackie's team, we're scheduling this for a March adoption to be part of the all of the different comprehensive plan amendments and documents. So with that said, I want to sincerely thank each and every one of you for participating in this process, devoting your time and your expertise to helping us build a better plan. It's definitely, I'm definitely thankful for your participation, and it helps us, helps our little community of engineers and planners build a much broader community for our residents today and in the future. So I really appreciate it, and I look forward to working with you again. Any other comments before we conclude our meeting?
this is Scott Sawyer. So Matt and Chuck, after the meeting, if I could just have a few moments of your time, I want to give you an update. I met with OTAC this morning regarding the intersection of 179 50th. So I just want to bring the two of you up to speed on that, and then
All right.
we can go from there.
Perfect. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.